Hi, I'm Riley.
And I'm Ryder. And this is my dad's show.
Hey everybody, it's Casey Jacox with the Quarterback DadCast. I want to say thanks to all of our listeners, thanks to all of our sponsors for all your support. We are continuing to enjoy this journey together, inspiring dads, but I want to take a minute now to talk about Acme Homes. You've heard me talk about him before, but I'm going to talk about him again. Bob Cumming, former college teammate, amazing leader, amazing home builder. They continue to take so much pride in the work they do, the craftsmanship, the attention to detail. Whether you're looking for a home up in Monroe, up in Sultan, up in Wenatchee, this is where they're doing their amazing things. So many people during the pandemic, as we have the ability to work from home, have decided to move out of the city to try to find homes where there's more acreage. Well, that's exactly what Bob and team at Acme Homes give you. So check out Valley Vista up in Monroe. Check out Daisy Meadows out in Sultan. And if you want to even go to Eastern Washington, check out Sienna Heights in Wenatchee. They're, again, amazing craftsmanship, amazing floor plans. You can visit them at acmehomeswa.com. And if you're interested in learning specifically about listings or mortgage opportunities, contact Jen at 425-308-8082 or Denise at 425-309-2318. So now, why are we doing a new ad? Because we want to talk about a partnership they have with Portage Bank. Kevin Jensen is one of the great lenders over there. He's the senior vice president. He's going to take care of you. And right now, if you obtain a mortgage through Portage Bank, Bob and team at Acme Homes are going to pay your $500 appraisal fee. I said that right. They're going to pay your $500 appraisal fee by buying a home through them, getting your mortgage through the folks at Portage Bank. So don't wait. Now's the time to contact Jen, contact Denise. Again, Jen's number is 425-308-8082. And again, Denise is at 425-309-2318. Visit acmehomeswa.com right now. Don't wait. Thank you again for listening to the Quarterback DadCast. So with that, let's get right to today's episode. Well, hey everybody, it's Casey Jacox with the Quarterback DadCast, and I want to quickly just make a note. In this interview, you hear me talk about my father. At the time when we did record, he was still with us, but as you have learned from the previous few episodes, my father passed away on December 29th of 2021, and I just want to dedicate this episode and this season to him. Dad, I love you, I miss you. Now let's get to this episode right now with Richard Harris. Oh, hey everybody, it's Casey Jacox with the Quarterback DadCast, and we're excited to bring on another guest. This is a referral from the one and only Scotty Lease, a Buffalo Bills fan who had just an insane potty mouth, which I absolutely loved. This next guest, though, is Richard Harris, his partner in crime. He's actually the CEO and founder of Harris Consulting Group. We'll hear about that in a second. He's also the partner in crime of this amazing event called Surf and Sales. It's almost like the next big thing, and we're going to hear about that. And if you're in sales, this is something you're going to want to learn about, even though spots are filling up quickly, which you will hear also. But more importantly, with all that said, we're actually here to talk to Richard today about Richard the father. We're going to learn about how he grew up and how he's working hard to become that ultimate leader of his household. So without further ado, Mr. Harris, welcome to the Quarterback DadCast.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. Scott had a potty mouth. I'm shocked. but that's actually a new challenge. If you said he had the biggest potty mouth, that means I may have to fucking do better than him.
Oh God, look at that F-bomb out of the gate at 103. Let's go.
All right.
Apple, and we'll be checking the little E to make sure this is adult friendly. How about a shit yeah on that one? Okay. Well, we always start every episode with, what are you most grateful for as a father right now?
Right now, I'm grateful that my kids still want to spend time with me.
Good answer. You're still a cool dad.
So far.
There we go.
The older one's not as much wanting to hang out, but he still will.
Nice. I am most grateful for time I'm getting with my father, who is, when this episode comes out, I hope he'll still be with us, but he might not. He's at this final stages of hospice, we believe. And
no. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thanks. I've actually spent some really good time with him. He's fought dementia for years, but he's had some great moments with me and my wife and my son and my daughter. And it's been neat to see my kids who didn't quite know him through the tough years of dementia, and they're actually kind of seeing his personality kind of come out at the end. And we've had some really funny moments. And so I'm grateful for that time that my kids, and they've seen dad cry a little bit, which is, I think it's important to show
That's
emotion. And
super important. Yeah,
yep.
super important.
So
So
I've been
that's great.
not
Well,
hiding
not
those
great that your
tears back.
father's dying. It's great to see the humanity in you.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I'm grateful for that. All right. Well, tell us about the huddle. What does the team look like at home? Who's in the Harris squad? What are the roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, so me, dad, um, my wife, Kathy, who we've been married for 14 years. Um, the fun story there is that we unintentionally, in the sense of like the date fell open, not because we, for any other reason, but we got married on 7/7/7. We had our oldest son on 7/7/08, and he weighed 7.7 pounds.
Wow.
So, and when you put all those together, there's 7 sevens. So that's sort of our fun little, hey, tell us an interesting fact about you story. Um,
And your
so we have
favorite
Riley.
airplane?
What's
Is it
that?
in your favorite airplane? The 777?
Yeah, exactly. Um, so that's Riley, who is our oldest, who is 14, in middle school, also studying for his bar mitzvah. So, and he's a really good kid. I think, any of the complaints I have are he's 14. Like that's about it. We also have Bodie, who is 11 and a half, and also really a wonderful kid. Been really educational with him, as we learned recently that, well, it's not recent anymore, but a couple of years ago, he was officially diagnosed with ADHD, which then got me diagnosed because we were like, wait a minute, I do the same shit. so, um, so we've really learned a lot about that
Hmm.
in our lives, and being better parents, better father. We ended up, with Bodie. We have some friends who sent their kids to this school in Berkeley. It's not for ADHD kids, but a lot of kids with it go there. It's an all boys school, and like the first week of school, they're like building their desks. They're
Hmm.
like they're really like using their hands and being interactive and using their brains in different ways, and they're getting to know the other kids. And it's really small. Like there's I want to say there's 24 kids in his grade, so 12 in his class. Like
Wow.
really, they've got a full-on workshop where they can do welding with like big old welding masks, and the whole thing, right? Like band saws and all. Like it's built for how boys learn, because the boy's brain does things differently. So, um, and he loves school. He never complains about having to go to school ever.
Wow.
So it's been a real blessing, where we've come with this. So those are the parameters. I have the primary job in terms of a traditional job. I wouldn't say primary, I'd say traditional. My wife obviously takes care of the house, but she and her family have been doing a lot of real estate investment over the years. So we're very fortunate that she does that a couple hours a week, but we get a full second income out of that. So she's actually
Nice.
around to, go drop the boys off and get them from here to there and do all those things. And so we're blessed. Like we have no complaints, and when we do, we kind of have to remind ourselves that really that's our problem. Like, the car battery died. That's the biggest problem in our life. We know a lot of people, where that's actually a big deal.
Totally.
So we got it.
Good for you. Perspective and staying grounded is
Yeah.
important.
Oh, and there's Lola. We have a dog, Lola. I forgot to mention Lola.
What kind of dog?
She's a Cavapoo. So she's part poodle, part Cavalier King Spaniel. She looks more King Spaniel than she does poodle, and
Okay.
and she's I say we have a dog, but Kathy has a dog and lets us hang out with her on occasion. So
Nice. Well, we have 3 dogs at our house. I only count 2. One's a Shih Tzu. You can guess which one I don't count. The other 2 are Golden Retriever Irish Setters, who I absolutely love.
right.
And but the Shih Tzu, just my kids love it. Her, and at times I can withstand her, but there's times where she just drives me bananas.
Yeah, of
Absolutely
course,
bananas. So,
of course.
before I forget, so I had a previous guest on, a former boss like 20 years ago. His name's Jeff Miller. He runs a company called Potentia, which
Called
is
what?
Potentia.
Okay.
And they're a staffing and training company that serves neurodiverse candidates. So like neurodiversity around could be, ADHD, could be Tourette's, could be, and they're doing trainings for companies on how to help train and hire and attract, um, folks with those um,
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis. And it's really interesting. So if you want, I'm more than happy to try to make a connection if you want to learn more about what they're doing. But he literally said one day, I'm done doing that. And he went all in, and he's kind of making this his life passion to really help educate and open up doors for
Mm-hmm.
neurodiverse folks.
Cool. I love it.
So I'll make sure I make an introduction.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. So I want to go back a little bit, and I want to learn, well, actually, real quick, tell us about surf and sales. I kind of teased that in the opening, but tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that and
Yeah.
how.
Surf and Sales started as an idea back in 2017 when Scott and I were in Costa Rica with our families for Thanksgiving one year and surfing. And he looked at me as we were walking off the beach one night and said, "How come nobody does a conference here? Why do we always got to go to the Hampton Inn in Omaha?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know, but if you're going to Omaha, at least you're at Berkshire Hathaway." But which he didn't get because he doesn't do that stuff. But so we toyed with the idea, and he threw it out there to see if people would do it, and they said yes. And so we've been doing it every year since 2018. We even snuck one in 2020 in February before the lockdowns hit. Um, and uh, it's a session that's meant to be smaller, more intimate, more connected. We take 16 people, we rent out houses, and we spend about 4 hours a day doing sales and life related content. Do some things on mental health sometimes, and maybe how mental health is in sales. Do other things on sales. If someone comes down and, you know, is really good at talking about public speaking, we'll let them talk about that. So that's kind of sales, but not really. And then we spend half the time, on the water surfing. So there's a lot of time for what I call the in between moments where you have those conversations that you just don't get to have in a traditional conference, and certainly not in a setting like we do have, where
Mhm.
you've got, 19 strangers, living in three different houses right on the beach, and you get lots of opportunities to have, you know, meaningful conversations about anything and make connections, and you really get lifelong friendships out of it. Like everybody goes, and the beautiful thing is we have WhatsApp groups for each session we do, and the chats are still going on. People are still chiming in on things, and it's been a real treat, a real treat.
Wow, that's awesome. And is it everything you thought it would be, or are you still learning? Like, oh my God, this is really happening,
Well, I don't think we knew what it was going to be. Like if
right?
you ask, like Scott and Jeff, Jeff's our third co-founder on this. We just thought we were, like, how do we do this? Like, what do we do? And we did it. And so I think it keeps evolving a little bit, where we now understand the kind of content that we think is powerful. We don't control a lot of the content. Like we each do our own sessions, but then we ask people who come down if there's something they're passionate about. So if you came down, we'd be like, "Hey, what's a topic you're passionate about? Maybe it's about being a dad. Okay, well, let's have you do a 45-minute session about being a good parent, right? Or understanding the dad perspective, because there's women there too."
Mm-hmm.
So all the content is not created by us. It's really driven by the individuals who show up, which I think is what makes it really special too. Um, I think we're pretty dialed in on it at this point. We know what we're doing. We go to the same place. We go to the same houses. We have the same cooks. They know us. We know them. It's a beautiful thing.
That's so cool. Well, it inspired me. I think when I first talked to Scott, he's like, "You should do one called Golf and Sales," and
Yeah.
he
Oh,
was.
we've gotten it all. We've got, believe me, I have all the URLs: golf and sales, surf and sales, ski and sales, snowboard sales, tennis and sales. Like I went and bought them all.
Oh,
So,
that's so good.
um, doesn't mean someone else couldn't do it, but it economically works really well because we do it in Costa Rica, so it's very central for everybody, right? Nobody's flying from one side of the country to the other. So it works really well, and we've talked about doing wakeboarding in sales. We've talked about all kinds of stuff.
Wow. Well, it's inspiring. Keep it up, man. Okay, so I want to go back in time, and I want to understand what was life like for Richard growing up, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe talk about siblings you had, and then talk about the impact your parents had on you now that you're a
Yeah.
father.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So grew up in Macon, Georgia, Jewish kid. Three Jewish kids in my temple, in my town, who were my age. One of them's my cousin Billy, um, and uh, had parents got divorced when I was 10. It was not a bitter divorce. There was no custody issues, and you can't spend time like we had. This was the custody arrangement, but if I ever wanted to go to my dad's, I'd just call him and say, "Can I go?" And so it was never. There was My parents did a great job of not creating any havoc around it, as best I can remember. Right.
It's great.
My mom would still go to my dad's family for Thanksgiving because she still considered them family, and my dad was okay with it. And my mom, as my dad dated, he was sort of a serial monogamist. He'd date a woman for 4 or 5 years, and for I think the other women wanted to settle down, and he didn't want to. Um, so my mom got along with them. In some cases, after they broke up with my dad, that woman and my mom became good friends. Like, it's crazy, right? Like, but so anyway, so I was a latchkey kid at the age of 10, single mom at the age of 10, never went for want, never, there was nothing I couldn't have, although I don't know that I was spoiled. I mean, I'm sure I was to some degree, but I was never like, oh, wow, I only get a coat and a toy for Christmas. You know what I mean? Like we were okay. We were fine. So, um, had issues with my dad all along. Took me a long time to realize it. It was tough. He was a perfectionist and didn't understand lack of perfection. He also lost his real dad when he was 3 years old. So that must have been in the late 30s, 41 maybe. So, and then his mom remarried and he lost his stepfather when he was 13. So he didn't have maybe the best modeling of, fatherhood for himself, to pass on to me. So, and certainly he didn't know how to handle that. He certainly was not a great communicator. Um, he, there are lots of things, that I learned. I started going to therapy in my 30s and really had to untangle myself from my parents, including my mom. Like, my mom was too interwoven with me, and to this day, she still has moments, and I have to kind of remind her that no, no, I'm 52. No, you don't get to take credit for that, kind of a thing. Um, but again, I was never abused. I was never hurt. I was never neglected. Well, that's not true. I would say my father neglected me in the sense of he just wasn't present. He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't engaging. Like, when I was a kid, I was not a great baseball player, but I loved playing. And in baseball, you played 2 innings, got one at bat, and he'd tell me to ask my coach, well, ask him what time is going to put you in, so I know when to show up. And I didn't know any better, so I would just go ask the question. Like, I was like, "Well, okay." And, my coach would say, well, it kind of depends on how the game goes. And I would repeat that back to my dad, and that was kind of it. And then I didn't even think anything of it until I went to therapy at the age of 30. You know,
Mm.
like, it just never dawned on me that was, a really weird thing. So I'll stop there because I can keep rambling more and more, but I'm
No,
sure
this
you
is
have
good,
a ton
man.
of questions. So,
This is about you and not me. But now, is your mom and dad still with us?
my dad passed away about 6 years ago. We made, I mean, there was never so much anger that it was amends, but we got better. As I went through therapy, I got to understand him better. I was able to communicate things with him better, and he did the best he could, and he
Mm-hmm.
tried. So, um, you know, my mom, yes, my mom is still around. I will tell you, like, this is the kind of things that happen. So the day my father dies, few years ago, I'm sitting around the dining room table with my stepmother, Joyce, who I love, and still, talk to, the rabbi, and then the guy from the mortuary. And all of a sudden, Joyce, in her sweet Southern voice, she just blurts this out of nowhere. She just, well, your dad had tickets to the Masters for like 15 years. And I'm like, what? Like, I'd for years been saying, Dad, let's go to the Masters. He lives in Georgia. We have cousins. We could just, I'll buy the tickets. I don't care how much they cost. Let's go do it. He would, no, 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 no. And so here I am on his day he dies. And this is like the tip of the iceberg. Like, this is just one of many things he's done.
How do you get
Where
tickets?
he had them. So, you can go and register to get on the wait list for tickets.
Done that.
And yeah. And so every year you can also go and try to get tickets for the next year. Like each year you just go throw your name in the hat.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes over time they're like, okay, you officially have tickets. And then once you have them for life. Like you really get them all the time. And then what I found out was that my dad lost the tickets, and he lost them because he let someone else borrow them. The person who borrowed them, or used them, I think that person gave them to somebody, and that person was driving along and had a joint in his car, got pulled over, and the tickets were in the lapel, and the cop looked at it in Augusta. This is in Augusta, believe me, the Masters owns that town.
Mm-hmm.
Cop takes them. My dad never gets the tickets again. Right. That's all we know. So,
wow.
but I don't know any of that. I don't know any of this until the day he dies. I'm like, what, like you, I'm like, well, why did he stop getting them? What happened? So
Wow.
anyhow, that's a story. One of many. So.
Well, I think it's awesome that you out of the gate we talked about therapy, which means we all got gaps. We all need to work. We all need to figure out ways to communicate, and we all got stories, and that's really what Richard, part of this podcast. I want to inspire dads to hear other dads talk about things that have gone on, and it's okay.
For the love of God, all of you fucking go get therapy, please. I don't know how else to say it. Like, just
how did you know who to? I mean, how did you know who to go see? I mean, how did you find someone that worked for you?
So I was like every other person, like I don't need a therapist. I'm not one of those people, right? And then I was working hardcore in San Francisco. I'm straight. I was single. I lived in Pacific Heights, the nicest neighborhood. I didn't even have a roommate. I could afford it. And I was miserable. I was so depressed. And one day I just woke up and couldn't get out of bed, like physically. I still remember the feeling of being frozen.
Wow.
And called my mom, like all good little Jewish Southern boys do. And she said, come home. And my first instinct was, I can't go home. And she said, why can't you come home? And I said, because then the city wins. And I couldn't, that was my just survival mechanism. I couldn't leave because I'd always wanted to live in San Francisco. Anyhow, so she picked up the phone, called someone who she knew who lived out here, who knew a therapist, and that's the therapist I still see. So I got, again, as I hear therapy stories, I got pretty lucky in the sense that, my therapist was great. She worked out really well for me and still does. And still see her, every other week with my wife. And on occasion, if my kids want to talk to somebody, they know they've gone. So it's really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you. So as you think about ironically, my dad's dad passed away when he was young. My dad's stepdad died when he was probably in his 40s, I think. So we got that in common. We also have beautiful haircuts. We got that in common too. Bald is beautiful, everybody at home. But as you think about, perfectionist, and you think about this journey of you going through what you went through now as a dad, like talk about the lessons you learned and how do you like think about like maybe not going down the same path your dad went with you? And
yeah. So, I think, it's the weirdest thing. I had a lot of challenges with my dad. Like he was very controlling. I still eat super fast, but it was so bad that he bought a device that had a red light, yellow light, green light on it. And I could only chew while the green light was on, or could eat while the green light was on.
wow.
And if the red light came on, I had to sit and wait. And it was like Pavlov's dog. Like this, again, this is just, there's hundreds of these stories. And So anyway, I am a good father in spite of my father, but I
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to say that because of who my father was and how he fathered me and my ability to learn that I didn't want to be that dad, I have to thank him for helping me become a better father because he
Mm-hmm.
was not always the best father,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is what we all have to say, right?
Right.
Um, but it took some time to get there to understand that. Um, and find that level of love and appreciation. So
What was the tipping point for you?
I think the first tipping point was when I first went to therapy. I was so afraid that I didn't want to put it on my insurance because I thought my company would find out.
Hmm.
So I called my parents and asked if they'd pay for therapy, and they agreed to pay for it. And then my dad at one point said, "Well, why don't you go ask the therapist and say, see how long this is going to take?" you know, Similar to the baseball story, right?
Right.
And I asked my therapist, well, how long is this going to take till I'm fixed? And you know, Dr. Solomon's so wonderful, and she just said, well, kind of doesn't work that way. And then she says, well, what makes you ask that question? And I'm like, well, my dad said I should ask. She's like, oh, well, let's unpack that. And you're off to the races.
Hmm.
And I think that was one of those moments where I realized, okay, there's too much influence in the committee in my head with my parents' voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I also know the same thing with my mom. I was very good at being independent of both my parents. So I knew from an early age how to go into a survival zone. So like when I went to college, I went from Georgia to Arizona, and my mom, I didn't let my parents take me to college. Like I drove out, my mom's like, "Well, I could fly out and meet you." And I'm like, "No, I want to do this all on my own." Like I was Mr. Independent. I called it my survival skills. Um, so there are lots of moments where I already knew how to be independent of them. And to this day, I still have what I call jokingly and publicly the state buffer rule. Like there's got to be two states between me and any immediate family member because like, you get it. You're laughing. You know why. So it's the two-state buffer rule. And look, parents are parents. I'm sure I'm going to do the same shit to my kids. Like, there's no doubt that, I'm not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as I tell my kids, I will tell them all the time, like, I hope you you think you're a better father than I am. Like, I want them to be better fathers than I am because I know I'm
Mm-hmm.
better than my dad, and I broke a cycle that I think I would have stayed in had I not done my therapy and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I want them to have all the encouragement to be the best person, human, man, teenager, father, if they decide to have kids, all that kind of stuff. So
Hmm.
I think those are my goals.
Love it. You're making me think back to an episode I had with the gentleman named Chris Rymuth, who is, we end up talking about power therapy as well. And he's like, if you're not in therapy, go get into it right now. Even if you don't think,
Yeah,
very similar conversation you said is,
yeah.
because I
Why
think it's
wouldn't
like, yeah, I mean, I think you're inspiring me. Like maybe I need to go talk, I mean, we all got things we could probably unpack and talk
Oh
through
yeah.
and be the, we think about exercise to make our bodies right, but we don't think about my friend Colin
Yeah.
Henderson talks about inner size, getting the mind right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I talk about this all the time too. Like I'm a big mental health advocate. We didn't mention this. I'm on the board of a nonprofit called Uncrushed that focuses specifically on mental health and sales. And
Uncrushed.
Uncrushed,
Okay.
like how your quota crushes you,
Okay.
kind of a thing. Where we're supposed to crush quota, but sometimes it crushes you.
Hmm.
And so we talk a lot about mental health and sales, and removing that stigma, and particularly for men, and then particularly for people of different cultures, whether it's Asian or indigenous or African American or black, that then there's a cultural bias that can come in a lot. We did some research on this to talk about you know um, how they're affected in sales and what makes them there, but it was there wasn't enough that we were comfortable publishing, um, around culture, but it is there. And if you talk to people from different cultures, they'll tell you, you know. So it was, anyway. So I agree with you. It is, and we talk a lot about, we try to eat healthy, we try to exercise, but we don't do brain exercises as much as we should. So.
Yeah, selling. Yeah, for all the sellers out there, take that to heart, and I'll make sure that the link to Uncrushed is in the show notes, because without getting your mind right in any job, but let alone sales, you are not going to be the best version of yourself. So I love that you shared that.
Yeah.
Do you now, from back to the therapy perspective, do you talk to your kids openly that dads went and sought this out? And
oh yeah, totally. Yeah,
that's
they know
awesome.
we have therapy. Yeah,
That's awesome.
My son, um, each of my son has their own uniqueness, right? So Bodhi's got ADHD, so we believe in Western medicine, but he still talks to his doctor every couple of weeks. So he does it, and he'll even tell people, he'll be like, it's good to have somebody to talk to sometimes, and particularly for a kid and a boy. I mean, I think it's each gender has their own uniqueness to it. But for Bodhi, it's been helpful for him to understand how he thinks, because he thinks so much, because he's a constant thinker like me. And so I think it's been super helpful for him. Riley's had stuff where we've gone and he's seen someone, and, we've let him know as we get into the bar mitzvah and his bar mitzvah project and all those things. It's like, if you feel like you want to go talk to somebody, we'll arrange it. Like, you don't have to, we're not going to force you to, but, we know what it's like to be stressed out with everything going on. And,
Yeah.
We're here if you want to do it. And so he's actually expressed some interest, like that might be a good idea. So that if something comes up, he's quote unquote a little more ahead of the curve, like it ain't going to be fixed in a session kind of thing, but it's.
Hey everybody, it's Casey Jacox. I want to take a quick break to talk about my friends up at Catch Sitka Seafoods, who continue to be just an amazing loyal sponsor. And for those of you who've tried it, thank you. For those of you who haven't, you're missing out. And now's the time to make sure that you visit CatchSitkaSeafoods.com and get some of those amazing smoked salmon. Get some of that amazing rockfish, blackfish, black cod, salmon, whatever it might be, whatever you like. But what's great about opportunities they have, now's the time to subscribe to a box so that you're going to get that reliable cadence of the best fish directly from the dock to the doorstep. And what's great about Catch Sitka Seafoods, they make it so easy. So those that maybe aren't the best chefs at home, doesn't matter. They're going to give you this beautiful, nice laminated recipe card that tells you exactly how long to cook it, whether you're going to barbecue, you're going to bake, you're going to fry, whatever the way you want to do it, they're going to make it easy. So please visit them today, CatchSitkaSeafoods.com. Sign up for a subscription so that you're going to get the best fish delivered directly to your door. You won't regret it. And just like my daughter Riley says, Dad, I don't even like fish. And she does now because of my friends up at Catch Sitka Seafoods. So with that, let's get right back to today's episode.
I think that the mechanism of support to know, I can go talk about this, is the beauty of anybody going to therapy. But to answer your question, yes, we're very open about it all the time.
I think it's great. I think even if dads at home or moms or whoever's listening even if you don't have therapy, just if you take one thing from this episode as dads, like create space in your relationships and home to talk, not just about the weather, the sports. Ask one question, and that's why I love comparing like fatherhood to sales and relationship building. If I ask shitty questions, I'm going to get shitty clients. I'm going to get a shitty outcome. But if I'm truly curious about someone else, actively listening, not hearing, but actively listening, and then asking multiple follow-up questions because you really want to learn about something or someone, right? That's the gift of, I think we can give our kids and teach them, to, like you said earlier, breaking the cycle. I think that type of behavior will break any cycle.
Totally agree. But talk, the funny thing is just talk to your kids, like talk about financial literacy, talk about, anything. I'm okay if it's still sports, right? I'm okay with it. But it's important to do it. And, the best place to talk to kids sometimes is in the car, right? Like you're isolated. There's two of you. You don't have to look at each other. I can't tell you how many, birds and bees conversations we've had, without having to make eye contact, right? but the conversation occurs, and it's
Yeah.
open, and it's a dialogue, and it makes it more comfortable for them,
Yeah.
right? You know, little things like that. But I agree with you. Just talk.
Hmm. Um, Now, do you have siblings?
I have one older sister. Yeah.
Okay. And were your experiences with your dad and hers different? Same?
Yeah, it's interesting. She's the older sister, older sibling, and has all the artistic talent in the world, like so crazy. Whereas I got sort of the logical brain. She got the art brain, and and she always felt controlled by my dad in different ways, but still felt it. But when he died, I was the one who was in tears the whole time. Like I was the one who just was delivering the eulogy and just couldn't, just bawling. And my sister seemed okay with it, and I find that interesting. She's on her own path. She's never followed a traditional life and business path kind of thing. Well, I shouldn't say business, but get a job, have a regular job kind of stuff. She's sort of all she's been a gypsy, literally. And so, of course, I think she needs therapy, but it's not my job to tell her. I mean, I've told her
Hmm.
once or twice, but yeah, different things. I think she has it more with my mom than my dad.
Hmm. Yeah, it's I think this is powerful stuff, man. I can't thank you again for joining and talking, and hopefully we're inspiring some dads out
Yeah,
there to realize the power of communication, power of therapy, power of getting work done on oneself to just be that best version. Because that's really the goal of these episodes. I want to give dads, let them know that you're not alone. There's other people out there
yeah,
dealing with very similar stuff, and if Richard can do it and keep doing it, then why can't you?
yeah. I've got one last thing. This actually happened today. My 14-year-old was going off to school, and and he said, "Okay, Dad, love you." And he'd been quiet all morning. And I just walked upstairs, and I was, you know what? Like, even if he's just saying it out of habit, the fact that he says it as he's leaving, that tells me we're in a good spot. Like, that tells me he knows, even if it's
Hmm.
habitual. Good. Well, he habitually knows that he loves me and that I love him. And it was just one of those little moments I had with myself. And I haven't even told Kathy yet. I need to tell her about it. And I don't know why it hit me. It just kind of did for whatever
Hmm.
reason. So my dad, I can tell you part of it. I know you're trying to wrap up, but I'll tell the
No,
story.
I'm
Is
good. We
that
got time.
the I was I don't remember my parents saying they love me as a kid.
Hmm.
And at one point, I was in eighth grade, and somehow the teacher brought up something about, well, your dad loves you. I'm like, my dad doesn't love me.
Hmm.
And so they had a parent teacher conference with me, and it freaked me out a little bit. I don't even remember what happened. I don't remember if I tried to deny it or if I said it, but from that moment on, we did say, I love you more. And, but clearly it was something really important. So I mean, that's clearly why it meant something to me today. But it was just nice to have that moment. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of situational stuff. Like, I'm 45. You get like dads who were maybe our dad's age, a little older, that I think feelings, being vulnerable, that level of communication wasn't always there. I
no,
think there's some
no.
dads that did get that. Um, it's funny. I love, back to my dad with dementia, like seeing my dad, and like we have videos of him like blowing each other kisses and say, "I love you, Dad," and he's like, "I love you
Hmm.
too. I'm so glad you're here." And to
Hmm.
have my son see that and see me like kind of
Hmm.
sometimes almost get a little teared up a little bit is like, it's
Hmm.
so awesome.
Yep.
And I think it's so cool that you're that present, and to realize that these moments are there for the enjoyment, and they're
Yeah.
there for one to think about. Maybe we're not having the best day, but hey, at least my son said he loves me. I got that going for me.
Yeah. And it's, I am excited for the day, should my kids have kids, to see the kind of parent they become. Right.
Yeah.
I'm excited for them if they choose to make that decision. So,
Hmm. And yet that's where we say, God, I hope all the work we did, it was enough
yeah.
to inspire them to be thinking a certain way.
Hope they'll be a
Um,
little fucked up than me. So,
so I guess as you think about, as you think about like your dad game, things that you've learned along the way with, 14-year-old and 11.5-year-old, I like to talk to dads about like an area of their game they're working hard that they know maybe is a gap. And like for me,
Oh,
mine's
it's
patience.
my temper. I've gotten way better at controlling it. I used to be a pretty big yeller. Um, and now I'm not a huge yeller, but I'm a soft. You're not going to do that again. Do you understand? Which for
Mm-hmm.
me is better than yelling.
Mm-hmm.
um, but I also, you know, the fifth time I have to tell them to brush their teeth, I'm annoyed, right? So,
Right.
um, but I think that's the one thing. I started meditation a couple of years ago, and I went really hard on meditation just with Headspace, um, and it really changed me, and gives me that, I kind of call it the 2 centimeters of space between what I'm thinking and what I'm about to say. Doesn't always stay there. Sometimes I miss, but it has created, and I still have this inner sense of calm through the meditation, which is good. So
That's awesome. What
thank you.
are, I kind of like joke with my friends who know my dad. Well, like my dad could say the best, most intense, God damn it, Casey, as a kid. Like
Hmm.
it would make me laugh a little bit because it was so like
Oh
almost like
yeah.
a musician, like a staccato, like the note was so sharp. Then
Hmm.
me and my sister would laugh, and then we'd be thinking, oh shoot, now he's gonna be frustrated. And then, but we can laugh about it now. And I find myself, you almost can feel it. You can feel the water boiling. You're like, and I
Oh,
try to
you
like,
do. Oh, yeah.
so like maybe talk about things. You talked about meditation. Anything else that dads at home can learn from someone who's worked hard on controlling their temper?
Gosh, it's such a unique journey to each individual,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to spend some time with it. You
Mm-hmm.
either well, the first thing you got to do is you kind of got to realize, okay, this is what I do, and I don't like it. I don't like that I do this.
Love that.
And I can, my advice to people is, when you can see yourself doing it in the moment, almost like you're watching a movie, even as you do it and you can't stop yourself, that's, if you can see and feel that part, that's when it's time to go, wait a minute, do I really want to be this? And then you have to commit to exploration. Not that you're going to change, but like, well, maybe I should think about changing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you commit to some whatever level of research, therapy, read a book, a blog, whatever. Um, and then you move forward. So those to me are the steps that I encourage people to think about. Um, I also think that's one of the things I love about Headspace is that, I can set a 3, 5, or 10-minute meditation, and I can always find 10 minutes in the day. I can even tell Kathy and the boys, hey, everybody, I'm going to do my meditation. Please don't come talk to me. And for 10 minutes, I have my meditation and I'm listening. And sometimes I have good days meditating. Sometimes I have terrible days meditating, but it's more about the fact that I take the time to create the space, not necessarily what happens there. Because over that time, I just get better and better.
Habits. You're creating good habits.
Yep.
And you're intentional about it. I love, like I've said that, like, I don't like that about myself. I've said that out loud. Like, I don't like when I lose my patience for ridiculous, dumb things. And
Mm-hmm.
what I've realized almost talking to so many dads, me, it's unfair expectations I've either set for myself or someone else that maybe I haven't truly communicated well. That is in my mind, it's clear, but I haven't verbally made sure that these expectations are clear. What like an outcome of a party or a dinner
Mm-hmm.
date or whatever it may be, or kids or what it may be, and
Mm-hmm.
but I think noticing that is half the battle
Yeah.
versus
It's first being able
self
to recognize it. Yeah.
self-awareness, I think too.
Yeah.
Um, this has been, that's what we said before. Everybody at home, I said, Richard, I don't have a agenda. We're going to let this conversation go, and this has been awesome. I've learned a ton about you. I appreciate um, just your story. I appreciate things you've shared. I think hopefully people at home, it's definitely inspired me to find like my own self. Like, is there something that I could figure out ways to get help if there one an area of
Mm-hmm.
my dad game or my own mind to get. So
Mm-hmm.
as we kind of, before we get into the fun lightning round, when I go completely random and Uncle Rico on you, if you were to summarize kind of what we've talked about, as more like, actionable tasks for dads at home to kind of learn from what we've talked about today on how they can find ways to improve, and one, two, or three different nuggets. How would you tell me what comes to mind?
So one is therapy. It could be a therapist, it could be a friend, it could be a clergy person, but that's often a heavy lift. People aren't ready to make that step. So other little things that I encourage people to do are adult coloring books. It's a form of meditation where you're just sitting there concentrating. I also believe in weighted blankets. Sometimes we just need to be held. Those are really helpful. If you have kids, they usually like them anyway. My kids love it. My youngest really loves his weighted blanket. I think the meditation piece is good. And I think, talking to your parents, even if they're not here, right? Put a pillow in a chair and talk to them and say the things you want to say, even if you want to be angry or mad or whatever, get it out of you. Like when I learned the story about my dad and the Masters tickets, I had to go upstairs and write the eulogy because I was delivering it and I couldn't write it. Like I had complete writer's block because I was so angry. Right. This is one of 20 things, there were Super Bowl tickets once, there were all kinds of stuff. And so my wife said, why don't you write the eulogy you want to say? And she even said, maybe that's what you need to tell everybody. Like what a shitty dad he was. And I was like, wow. All right. So I wrote it and I didn't use it, but I got it out of my system. So I think I think we all know the more we talk about a problem, the easier it is to move on from it. Conceptually, we get it. Do we actually do it? I don't know. So those are my suggestions for people. But my biggest suggestion is take a baby set. Shit, find me on LinkedIn and I'll chat with you for 10 minutes. So, I don't care. I'm here to support other people.
That's so cool. You kind of led me to my next question before I go into this lightning round. So if people want to learn more about you, they want to learn about Surf and Sales, they want to learn about your consulting company, they want to just connect because they love what you've said. What's the best way for me to help them find you?
Yeah, this is really crazy. This is my phone number, 415-596-9149.
9149.
Yep, 415-596-9149. It's my real phone number. Happy to, talk to anybody. Text me if you want. Let me know, hey, I heard you on the DadCast, the dad quarterback. What is it called?
Quarterback DadCast.
Quarterback DadCast. I think that's fun. Find me on LinkedIn, Richard Harris. I'm the one with a little fake trademark symbol by my name. And we'll go from there.
Love it. And then I will make sure also Uncrushed is on there too. Do you have a website?
Yeah, it's uncrushed.org.
Okay. I love that. That's powerful stuff, dude. Okay. Now we go into lightning round. When I ask you random questions, my job is to hopefully get a giggle out of you. Your job is to answer these questions as quickly as you can. Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
Okay. Favorite hole at Augusta?
6.
Okay. I'm going 15 or 13. Get home in 2. Lowest round you've ever shot in golf?
88.
88. If you were to book a vacation right now, other than Costa Rica, where are you going?
Greece.
Okay. Favorite 80s comedy sitcom?
80s comedy sitcom? Greatest American Hero? If that was the 80s,
I'm walking on air.
Yeah.
I got a giggle.
Yeah.
That was my ringtone for a little bit. True story.
Oh, I might have to download. That's a good one.
All dude, right. It's beautiful. Last book you read?
I'd have to look it up, but I'm in the middle of reading one called Writing of the Gods that's about the Rosetta Stone, but I'm in the middle of that. I think it was the David Grohl book. I read David Grohl's book.
Okay.
Which was really good.
If there was a book to be written about your life, what would be the title?
God, I don't know. Book about my life. You can be successful while still being fucked up.
Love it. There we go. And now this book just got turned into a movie. We're going Academy Award, but you can't play you. You got to find a Hollywood actor to play you. Who's playing you?
Who's playing me? Probably Jason Alexander.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. I can see a little resemblance.
Jonah Hill could do it too.
There we go. Not Richard Pryor?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, last question. If I'm coming to your house for dinner tonight, what are you making me?
Tonight? It's probably scrambled for whatever we got in the fridge. So,
but you had your dream kitchen.
Really coming for dinner? We're probably grilling out by the fire pit, hanging out, putting the game on the TV. We have an outside barbecue, an outside fire pit, and an outside TV. So probably something like that.
Awesome. Lightning round's over. You made it complete. Thank you again, Richard, for your time, your honesty, the story. It's timely, just what I'm going through with my dad, and I hope anybody. The biggest thing: keep talking, keep communicating. Let's work hard to be dads that inspire communication, and don't be the ones that just sit quiet and pretend like life's great, because it's not. We all need help. No one's perfect. We all got gaps.
Casey, I'm sure you've got a great support system. I'm here for you if I can ever do anything around your dad, and I mean life in general. We know each other, but I'm always happy to talk about that stuff if you need it.
I appreciate it, brother. I want to say a huge shout out to our sponsors, Catch Sitka Seafoods and Acme Homes. You guys have been great. If you want to have the most freshest, cleanest fish directly right out of that Sitka Harbor, give them a shot. CatchSitkaSeafoods.com. And if you live in the Seattle area, or state of Washington, please check out our friends at Acme Homes, who have some amazing properties right now throughout the state of Washington. But without this episode is in the books, Richard, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Casey. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for listening.